Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
Hey, happy Tuesday, everybody. Austin Clark here, host of the Multiply You podcast. Very, very excited to be able to dig in today with our guest, Cameron Herold, and very, very much so looking forward to introducing him and picking his brain on some of the topics that are just top of mind for all of us, whether we're CEOs, COOs, and some of his experience. This podcast and this episode is brought to you by Moxie Pest Control, as they all are. We're growing just like you're growing. We do it through all the traditional ways. I think that Cameron will probably share some of those marketing, not so much materials, but techniques and principles with us. We do direct mail. We do pay-per-click ads. We do long-form SEO, different referral programs. We incentivize our customers to be able to refer. We incentivize our employees to be able to refer different clients. Most recently, though, we've had the very fortunate opportunity to be in a position to be able to purchase other pest control companies. So if anyone is out there and you know anybody specifically in Arizona, but anywhere that we've got a dot on the map as far as Moxie Pest Control goes, have them get in contact with me. They can call me directly. They can text me directly. My personal cell is 480-254-9730. We've had some fantastic stories and experiences the last 24 to 36 months. It's really helped us to be able to grow and these entrepreneurs to be able to close a chapter of their life and move on to another chapter of their life as well. And so that's been an exciting thing. We'd love those introductions. Cameron Herold is the founder of the COO Alliance and Second in Command podcast. He's known around the world as the CEO Whisperer. Cameron is the mastermind behind hundreds of companies' exponential growth. He's built a global consultancy, and clients have included a Big Four wireless carrier and a monarchy. Cameron is not a theory guy. He only speaks from experience. Cameron earned his reputation as the CEO Whisperer by guiding his CEO and COO clients to double their profits and double their revenue in just 3 years or less. Cameron's been an entrepreneur since day one. At age 21, Cameron had 14 full-time employees. By 35, he'd helped to build two, not one, but two $100 million companies. By the age of 42, he had engineered 1-800-GOT-JUNK's spectacular growth from 2 million to 106 million in revenue and 3,100 employees, and did it in just 6 years. Companies led by Cameron have landed over 5,200 media placements in those same 6 years, including coverage on Oprah, who we all watch. And even if you deny it, we know that you're lying. Everyone watches Oprah. She's wonderful. The publisher of Forbes magazine, Richard Karlgaard, stated, Cameron Herold is the best speaker I've ever heard. He hits grand slams. Author of the global best-selling business book Double Double, as well as Meetings Suck, Vivid Vision, Free PR, and The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. Cameron is a top-rated international speaker and has been paid to speak in 26 countries. Cameron is also a top-rated lecturer at EO and MIT's Entrepreneurial Master's Program, and a powerful and effective speaker at Chief Executive Officer and Chief Operating Officer leadership events around the world. Cameron, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Hey, Austin. Thanks very much for having me. Appreciate it. Doing great.
Of course. I kind of want to dig right into this. I mean, what would you say? I mean, what are some of the fun facts, or what are some of the things that you have such a big personality? You're out there online. You're doing a lot of things. What are some of the things that people might not know about you that might be interesting?
I'm a father of 2 kids. I got 2 teenage boys that are 18 and 20. They're both heading off to university for first year and third year this year. Love skiing, golfing, hiking, tennis. I've split my time between 2 countries for the last 10 years, going back and forth between Arizona and Vancouver. So I travel a lot. I'm probably a travel addict and a bit of a foodie.
And by your background, it appears that you're not in Arizona today. I unfortunately am. It's got to be 5,000 degrees. I think that we've had 20 of our field people drop dead of the heat. And so you're in the right place of the 2 places that you split your time. You've been an entrepreneur forever. Like, how did that begin for you? How did it start? When did you know you were an entrepreneur?
It's funny that you talk about being in pest control space in Arizona. A friend of mine just freaked out yesterday, wondering if she had scorpions in her place, and she's all terrified about it. I really had been groomed as an entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur. Both brothers were entrepreneurs. Brother and sister, I'm sorry. We've all run our own companies for between 15 and 25 years. So we were really groomed to work for ourselves. I had my first companies really doing entrepreneurial ventures as a teenager. And even before that, probably had 15 different entrepreneurial ventures. Before I started my first real company, I had 12 full-time employees. But that was always been my niche. I really got a lot of training at a group called College Pro Painters, which went on to become the world's largest house painting company. I was in the top 30 people of that company globally. And every year we had to hire 800 franchisees, train them all how to run a business. And then they hired 8,000 painters in a month. And we'd do 64 million in revenue in 17 weeks. And then they would all quit and go back to school and we'd do it again. So doing that 4 times, really building a 9,000 person company in 6 months, just trained me to be operationally world-class at interviewing, recruiting, selecting, training, onboarding, and leadership development of people. And then also finding the shortcuts and easy to implement systems to scale companies. And that's all I've ever really done since.
And so it seems, entrepreneurship has just been in the family and been ingrained from a long, long time. What was one of your earliest ventures as a child or as a kid, and how did that go?
The first one was selling coat hangers to the dry cleaners. I was 7 years old. I was in a dry cleaner with my mom, and I saw they had a sign on the wall that said, "We will pay you 2 cents for every coat hanger." And I was, this was 1972. I was 7 years old. So I thought I can collect coat hangers. And I started phoning the dry cleaners out of the yellow pages. I took the long phone to my bedroom with a long cord and started phoning all the dry cleaners, asking them how much they would pay me. And one guy wanted he was going to pay me 3 cents and I wanted 4 cents. And finally I said, "How about 3.5 cents?" And he goes, "How old are you?" I'm like, "I'm 7. And he goes, "Well, where did you come up with 3.5 cents?" And I said, "Well, I want 4 and you want 3. So we're going to meet in the middle." And he's like, "Fine, I'll give you 3.5 cents a coat hanger." And then my mom was laughing because she's like, "Where are you going to get all the coat hangers?" I'd gone door to door in the neighborhood for about a week collecting coat hangers from all the neighbors. And my closet was filled up with coat hangers. And so that was the first deal that I did was took all these coat hangers to the dry cleaner. And what I learned was that, everything's negotiable and you got to hustle and you spot an opportunity. And so every little business I actually did a talk that's on the main TED website. If you go to TED.com and you look up my name or Raising Entrepreneurial Kids, you'll see my talk from 10 years ago. And I outlined probably 15 different businesses I had by the time I was 18 years old. And every single one of those business ventures taught me some core lessons that I still use in business today.
Incredible. Daniel Marcos was on at the Growth Institute or from the Growth Institute just last week. Yeah, he was kind enough to come on, and one of his first ventures was, I think that your coat hanger experience was more successful, but he was selling goldfish out of his parents' garage. They had partitioned the small 1-car garage into 4 parts or so, and he was selling goldfish. And so I think that maybe you came out a little bit better.
Daniel and I sat together at a dinner last year. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. It was really nice to have him on. So, you kind of jumped into a couple of things that I think that are just really, really important. I mean, one of the things that you said, and I wondered if you'd speak to it, obviously, with the climate today, but I mean, your experience in being part of hiring, 8,000 employees in a very short amount of time, onboarding them, training them, backing up even to recruiting them and then hiring and all of that process. I mean, how is that even possible? Like, what does the infrastructure look like to be able to? I think that most companies have a difficult enough time and probably don't do it well at all to recruit, hire, onboard, train, continue to have that individual perform with one employee. Yeah. And so how do you do that with 10, 1,000, 8,000 in your case?
Yeah, 8,800. We first were very, very clear on what we were looking for. So we knew the behavioral traits that each role needed to have. And then we needed the skills that each role needed to have. And then we outlined how to interview to find out how to rate people on the skills and the behavioral traits. So, as an example for franchisees, the 5 core leadership traits they needed were leadership, attainment, tenacity, introspection, and interdependence. Those were the 5 traits. We had a definition for each of the 5 that everyone in the company could repeat word for word. So tenacity was the dog-like work ethic to get over, under, around any obstacle put in one's path. And then we knew the questions to ask to find how to rate people on each trait. So what we would do is rate people on a scale of 1 through 5. We would only let 10% of the people get a 5 out of 5. We would let 20% of the people get a 4 out of 5. We'd let 40% of the people get a 3 out of 5. And then again, 20% for a 2 out of 5 and 10% for a 1. So there's a bell curve. And we only brought people forward if they at least ranked a 4 or a 5 on leadership attainment and tenacity, and at least a 3, 4, or 5 on interdependence and introspection. So very clear on what we're looking for, very clear on how to find it, 5 starting questions for each of the behavioral traits. And that was allowing us to start an interview. We knew how we trained people on how to go through the resume. I actually cover all this in a course that I launched called Invest in Your Leaders. One of the 12 modules is all of these systems around interviewing, which is any company can use. So we had the questions to ask. We knew how to probe. We trained people on how to do closed questions and open questions and torque and really grill people and know everything about them. So that was knowing where we were going and know how to find it was the starting point. We made sure that all of our job postings were written like sales letters. We'd have a copywriter take the job posting and make it pop off the page. So a copywriter would rewrite the job posting to really make it pop. And then we really put a lot of our effort and energy into finding a big pool of candidates that we could then narrow down. So just systems like that.
So backing up a little bit to employees, one of your grandfathers years ago owned a pretty prestigious hunting lodge. Is that right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said in one of the pieces that I watched is, you, even after he had liquidated that or exited, you guys would go back and visit, and some of the employees there would just tell you stories and express their gratitude and appreciation for the things that their grandfather had done in truly taking care of them. We're 30 years or 40 years, or I don't know exactly how many years into the future. Are those things still important as millennials and younger people are coming into the workplace?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not to say that people don't want to be valued. They probably want that more than ever. But what was that experience like going back and hearing those things? How did that impact you? And then how does that principle of just taking care of people apply today? Because it's different. It is different.
Well, it is and it's not. It's actually a very timely question because 99% of his employees were First Nations or Native Indians. His resort was very close to an Indian reservation. He would hire all these Native Indians to work for him, but he treated them really well. He treated them with respect. He got to know their family. He got to know their friends. He cared about their problems. He cared about them as human beings. And then they went through brick walls for him to help him build the lodge, but he knew them. So we would go back to hunt in that area 30 years later, 25 years later, and we'd have to go and visit a bunch of his old Indian friends who had worked for him. And I'm like, these are just these old people. He's like, no, but he was my head fisherman and he was the head guy at the lodge and she was one of my cooks. And I'm like, fuck, you still really like this. So that hasn't changed. Liking a person and caring about a person and the humanity of a person hasn't changed. I think it's now we're actually warming up to something. He was way ahead of his time. That was back in the day that it's my way or the highway, you do it or else I'm going to fire. He just didn't do it that way. He really cared about people and they cared about his business because of that. So I think one of the big lessons I learned was the more you obsess about your employees' happiness, the more they'll obsess about your customer. And if we only care about our customer, your employees feel overworked and underpaid and undercared for. But if you care more about them, they'll care about the customer.
So your grandfather, his business wasn't perfect. One of the challenges that he had, at least in that business, is some of his employees like to drink.
You hear about this. This is hilarious.
Hey, yeah. And so what was his, and this genius has gone on to you and, we'll go on, but how did he address that challenge?
Well, the lesson that I learned from his solution was it doesn't have to be the perfect solution. It just has to be one that solves a problem, like an easy solution. So what happened was they liked to drink. They had nothing else to do at the end of their day hunting and fishing, and they'd take their money and they'd all get drunk. So what he decided to do, instead of paying these 20 people on a Thursday or 40 people on a Thursday, he paid 4 of them on Monday, 4 on Tuesday, and 4 on Wednesday. So they only had enough money to get 4 people drunk or a couple people could each have a drink. But he never had an issue with people not turning up anymore. So he just instead of changing them, he just figured out a solution that worked for everybody. So it was just a little ingenious little hack. For me, it's always been about the shortcuts, right? I've never been smart enough to have the best solution, but the little ones that just work, they just work.
Well, and so that will get us into your theory on R&D, which doesn't stand for what most people think that it stands for. Cameron has a different definition, but to your grandfather's credit, he's a genius. Worst case scenario, 4 employees are calling out a day rather than 20, and having no one there on Monday to come, do what they were going to do. Tell us a little bit more. You're humble and say, "Oh, I wasn't smart enough," but that's just not the case. Give us your piece and play on research, or it's not research and development, but R&D in Cameron's world.
Well, so for me, the R&D stands for rip off and duplicate. And I'm going to show you my university transcript, and you can read my grades out just quickly so people can hear them.
They're out there, everybody. They're out there.
They're not that strong. Those are B, F, withdrawn, C, C minus, C, D minus, D minus. I didn't do well in school. But I realized,
if I were your manager, I would say, Cameron, there's certainly room for improvement there.
What I realized, though, no one was ever going to ask me for my grades. That all I needed to get was the degree and get out. I needed to go and enjoy university and have fun. So I joined clubs and I joined organizations. I was president of the first fraternity ever in the city of Ottawa. I was running a business. I did student government. Like, I really was active. I was on the university ski team for 2 years. So I just did everything and realized it was more about who I know than what I know. And that's also been a big lesson for me over the years, that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room anymore. 30 years ago, you had to be, because there was nowhere to access the information. But now I just have to know the smart people, which is why I joined mastermind groups. I pay to be involved in mastermind communities. Is the more that I know the right people, the more they can connect me to the answers quickly. The COO Alliance is an example. We've got about 150 COOs from all over the world that now no longer have to be the smartest COO, because they know 150 others who become their quick Google, right? How do I do this? What are you doing? What's the system? Can you make an introduction? It's pretty powerful, that lesson that I pulled from back then. So my R&D stands for rip off and duplicate. Try to find the best systems that the best companies or people are using and just put those in place.
Well, and in terms of shortcuts, so hopefully we can talk about this here. If not, we can rip it out. But someone was publishing a book years ago. They thought so much of you, and they said, "Hey, do you think that in this," and it was an accounting book, but they said, "Hey, do you think in this book or this subject on accounting, you could, say something or put a blurb in?" And how did that conversation go?
Oh, you've done your homework. These are great. Okay, so this was around 2002. I got a phone call from a woman who was writing the textbook for all Canadian universities and colleges for managerial accounting, and they wanted to use me as the expert on the section in budgeting, because we did an amazing job with budgeting at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We're getting known for it. And I said, "I'll do it, but before I do, I need to tell you something. I cheated in that course." She's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, 20 years ago, I paid someone to do all my accounting assignments for me, and I almost flunked managerial accounting." And she laughed and she goes, "That's hilarious, but I still want to use you as the reference." I said, "That's fine, but I needed to tell you the truth." But when I told my dad what I had done and how I was really struggling to pass the course, he said, "What do you want to do when you're older?" I said, "I want to be an entrepreneur." He said, "Well, entrepreneurs have to hire accountants. You learned very early how to hire someone to do your accounting for you." And he wasn't saying that cheating was okay, but he was teaching me the lesson that I learned, that smart people exist. I can pay them to do work, and that can get me the result. So by paying someone to do all my assignments, I got my result of passing the grade. It taught me very early to outsource everything except genius, right? To really look for the things that I can hire fractional or freelance or outsource people to just do, so that I can stay in my zone of genius.
Do you have, Cameron, a exercise or a methodology that you work through either in your mind or in a different way that helps you to be able to identify like what those activities are as it relates to your genius? I can't imagine you're coding receipts anymore, or spending your time doing that. What does that process look like?
No, I don't do anything that drains me of energy or that I hate doing or that I suck at. So I use a system that Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach created called an activity inventory. So basically, here's how it works. Pretend that someone followed you around with a video camera for an entire month. And then you play back the video and you write down everything you see yourself doing in your day-to-day at work. I open emails, I read emails, I reply to emails, I book meetings, I book travel, I research hotels, I do one-on-one meetings, I do sales calls, I do podcast interviews, whatever. What I do is I open up a spreadsheet, and in column A, I write down every task that I do. And there might be 80 different things that I do. So every row is a different task. In column B, I categorize the tasks in one of four ways. Either I for incompetent, meaning I suck at it. C for competent, meaning I'm okay at it. E for excellent, meaning I'm really, really good at it, but I don't necessarily love doing it. And U for unique ability, meaning I'm really, really good at it. I love doing it. I get energized doing it. I would do it for free, except my kids have to eat. And then in the third column, column C, I put an hourly rate down for each of those tasks. If I paid someone just to clean toilets, what would that be? Minimum wage. If I clean someone just to book travel, what would it be? Maybe $25 an hour, because I don't want them to screw it up. If I paid someone just to, clean the office, what would I pay? So you figure out an hourly rate for each. And then I figure out what my effective hourly rate is. So my effective hourly rate is about $5,000 an hour. I actually charge $2,700 an hour to coach CEOs. So my effective hourly rate, though, comes out at about $5,000 an hour, which means I delegate anything off my plate that is less than that. So if it's a $100 an hour task, someone else can do it. If it's a $500 task, someone else should do it. What I should be doing are three things: coaching CEOs, networking, and doing interviews. That's it. The other stuff that I do drains me or is hard or doesn't necessarily feed me, or it's below my effective hourly rate that somebody else should just do it.
Have you always, Cameron, been incredible at that? Is that something that you learned when you were 15, 25, 35? I mean, what was that like for you?
Unfortunately, it was something I had to learn because College Pro Painters taught us the opposite. We had to do everything because we didn't have very long to be able to hire and recruit other people to do all the other tasks. So we became very, very good at radical self-reliance and at actually just knowing what to do and getting it done. We were like monomaniacs with a mission. So I was just very, very good at doing all of the things of running a business, but I had to work like a fly trying to get out the window, right? Just work hard, work hard, work hard. Yeah, I had to learn it as my businesses grew that I needed to delegate.
And so you almost, had to unlearn what you learned where you were, because that was just expected.
Yeah.
I've got a neighbor, he's a surgeon, really successful. He for years was the surgeon on staff at Burning Man. And you have some connections to Burning Man. What are they? Why did you go? What did you learn? How has that helped you as a person and an entrepreneur?
I do. In fact, when I said radical self-reliance, that's actually a term from Burning Man as well that I realized as I said it. Wow. So Burning Man is, I've got pictures right in front of me from Burning Man, paintings. I first went in 2007. I've gone 6 times. I'm getting ready to go again. It is a complete off the grid time when you're with people who no one cares what you do to make money. They all care about each other's passions and fun and just having a good time and doing cool stuff to support each other. I realized that I can't judge a book by its cover, that some of the smartest people aren't the people who I thought they would be, that I used to judge people based on the way they looked. And now I realize that I need to get to know people to really know them, to truly know them. I don't shake hands anymore. I just hug people, even in business meetings. Women, men, it doesn't matter. If you can't hug me, you're probably not going to be a good fit to work with me or be a business. Like, it just doesn't work for my world. I don't take myself too seriously anymore. Like, I just have fun. I unplug a lot.
Incredible.
The art there is amazing. The art really hits me.
Yeah, I've never been. As I've talked with my neighbor Al, I've said, what draws you to go, what draws people to go, and now I don't think that he's the official or designated surgeon on staff, because sometimes there's accidents. Usually, a lot of like dehydration, mostly because you're in the desert in the middle of nowhere, and things are going on. And so he says, well, you've got to have, Austin, a really, really open mind. But he loves it. He speaks so highly of it and just thinks that it's just kind of an incredible thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also, Cameron, have a little bit of a tie with the Musk Brothers. And tell us about that. And I mean, I guess in a sense, in a way, kind of help them to secure some early day funding because you were a reference.
Yeah. So I've known Elon and Kimball. Oh, I met Kimball Musk. I hired Kimball Musk. So I recruited, hired, and trained Kimball Musk in 1993 to be a franchisee for me at College Pro Painters. I also hired his cousin, Peter Reeve, who went on to become the second command at Solar City. He and his brother, Lyndon Reeve, built Solar City. So Peter worked for me as well. In January of 95, 2 years later, Kimball approached me to be a reference for he and Elon for their first round of funding for the first company, Zip2. Most people don't know about Zip2, but they built Zip2 and sold it 3.5 years later for $305 million in cash to Compaq. It was the largest all cash sale in history. And I was a reference for them when they only had one employee and they were looking to raise money. Kimball called me that night and said, look, the venture capital firm won't invest in Elon because he's never done anything. He dropped out of aeronautical engineering. He's unproven. They need to understand College Pro Painters and the operational experience. I didn't even understand the internet or the business they were running. It was an internet company. And in 95, I didn't know what the internet was. So I had to just talk about College Pro and the operations and sales and marketing and time management, people management, and production that Kimball was good at. And he called me that night and said, I don't know what you told them. I said, did I screw up? And he goes, no, we asked for 600,000. They gave us 3 million. So I've known them for a long time.
And you said, good, that'll only cost you 10%. So thank you very much.
I stupidly didn't get involved in the founders round at Tesla a few years or 10 years later because I thought it was a dumb idea when he was buying Tesla from Ian Wright and Martin Eberhard. I thought it was a dumb idea.
So you have ideas come across your desk, and not just ideas, but opportunities to be able to look to invest, be a part of it, whatever else. I mean, what is your process for either saying yes or no? Do you mostly say no? How do you, are you risk averse? Do you how does that work for you?
Yeah, my process has changed over the years. I now bet on the person and what they've done before versus the model. I bet on the team or who else is involved and where I see it going. I do 3 angel investments a year. But in the summer of 2008, I actually brought the founder of Uber to Burning Man, and he was pitching us. It was Garrett Camp. It was 6 months before he hired Travis to be CEO. Garrett was the founder, and he was pitching us, and 4 of the 5 told him it was the stupidest idea we'd ever heard. Tim Ferriss was my other friend. Tim was there, and Tim invested. Tim put 25 grand in, and at the IPO, it was worth 108 million. So I learned that I have no idea if the idea is good or not. Garrett was clearly a proven entrepreneur. He'd already built and sold StumbleUpon. He was going to be able to do it again. He knew people in the Bay Area. I should have invested in Garrett as a human. And I had the money to waste, like 25 grand or 10 grand back then wasn't going to kill me or make me or break me. But I let my ego get in the way. I had just left 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I think I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder and let that get in the way. So now I look at the people, the team, the investments that are coming around it, and I try to get involved there.
So the first time I read your book, Double Double, in fact, I didn't read it. I listened to it. A friend probably 5 years ago turned me on to it. I listened to it, I think probably all in one day, maybe 2 days. I normally don't listen or read books twice very often. I think that I've listened or read Double Double 3 to 4 times because I just thought this guy's either a liar or he's right. And I was betting on you being right. And we've certainly had, as we've done the best that we can here at Moxie, although, imperfect, to implement some of those things. And it's certainly been our experience. But there's a piece in there that I really, really like that you kind of drew some of your inspiration from an Olympic coach as it relates to visualization and as what you've coined, the vivid vision. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, Vivid Vision actually was just given the registered trademark 3 weeks ago as well. So it's kind of cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. No, not a liar. I've never had a unique idea in my life of how to do something. I've just always found the best solution or system and I put it in place and then we just run with it. The Vivid Vision idea is something we learned from an Olympic coach back in 1998. I was running an auto body chain. No, I was actually running a barter company at the time. I'd gotten out of the auto body business and I was doing the private currency business. And 120 entrepreneurs in Vancouver were invited to this luncheon to listen to a high performance sports psychologist. 16 of us went. And he started talking about looking into a crystal ball. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the dumbest session where it's going to be 2 hours of our life we're never going to get back. But we were kind of there, so we had to listen. And he was talking about how athletes used visualization, how athletes would see themselves performing the event, how they would close their eyes and roll themselves through the event hundreds of times so that when they were performing the event, they could do it almost completely on instinct. They'd caught the ball, or they'd hit the serve, or they'd done the gymnastic routine, or they'd skied the course, or taken the shot. And they'd done it so many times, they could almost completely make the move on instinct. So we understood how athletes did it, didn't understand how to do it in the business world. And we thought about businesses that used visualization, and we came up with home builders. And we realized that when someone's building a home or doing a kitchen renovation, as an example, the CEO of that project is the homeowner. And the homeowner doesn't know how to build a house. They don't know how to do plans or blueprints to build a house, but they have a vision of what they want their house to look like. And if they can explain the vision in enough detail to the contractor can do the plans and the blueprints and the elevation drawings to make the vivid vision come true. If the homeowner signs off on the plans and the contractor signs off on the vision, they can hand the vision and the blueprints to the employees who can build the home without ever speaking to the homeowner. So that was what showed me how to do it in the business world. So imagine if we hopped into the DeLorean time machine, jetted off to December 31st, 2024, 3 years out, and we walked around our company. And we described our marketing, described IT, we described finance, we described our interaction with our customers, we described what our employees were writing on Indeed and Glassdoor, we described what was being written in our Yelp reviews. We talked about our leadership teams and our meetings and the employee culture and how suppliers worked with us. And we described it without knowing how it was happening. We just described what we saw 3 years from now. That document ends up as a 4 or 5 page written document that you get a copywriter to polish it and make it pop off the page. You add some design elements to it so it looks and feels like your brand, and you share it with everyone. You share it with your employees, your potential employees, your customers, suppliers. You share it with your lawyer, your banker, accountant. And you keep sharing it so that everyone can see what you can see, and then they can figure out how to make it come true. So that's the concept of the vivid vision.
So you've had many of your own companies. You've been a high-level consultant for a very, very long time. You've had thousands of different calls with entrepreneurs, business owners that are doing well, that are struggling. Why do people not take the time to work on their business rather than in it? In this instance, create a vision 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out of what their company will look like, smell like. All of that. What are things that people tell you as to why they're not doing these things that obviously have lent to so much of the success that you've had and clients that you've consulted?
Yeah, and I don't work with companies that are struggling. I only work with companies that are already doing well, that are poised for accelerated growth, and then I show them how to grow fast. This funny guy, Kawasaki, said, "How come every company you touch turns to gold?" I said, "I only touch gold." So the reason that most companies aren't using stuff like a vivid vision is they don't know of it. All we've ever had in the past was we got our favorite employees together. We put some of our most inspirational words up onto a whiteboard. We narrowed them down to like 6 or 7 words, and we mashed them up into one sentence and called it our mission statement and said, "Go team." That's all we had. I was talking to someone this morning, an interview for a magazine, and he said, "Well, isn't mission statements, aren't they still good enough?" And I said, "No, it's not unlike a horse was amazing as a mode of transportation for so long to take us from city to city or across North America. But would you really want to ride a horse from New York to Seattle? Of course not. That's stupid. You could have a car or a plane. There is a better way, but no one knew of it." So 3 of my books, I cover the vivid vision concept in the Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs, in Double Double, and also in Vivid Vision. I roll out in my course, Invest in Your Leaders, how to actually take the vivid vision and have your employees make it come true. So I'm just trying to show companies that there is a better way. And once everyone can see what the entrepreneur can see, they understand why we're making the decisions we're making. They operate with the same level of intuition that we have as an owner operator. They understand why we're saying no to some projects and yes to others, and they start finding more meaning in their work as well, because they see that what they're working on is tied to a greater purpose.
So, Cameron, you've hit home runs, you've done well, published author, just a tremendous amount of success, but it's not all success, or like I like to say, or some people like to say, the Instagram life. tell us about some of your failures, or tell us about some setbacks, and what have you learned during those times? What have been some of your lowest points that you're comfortable talking about?
I think one of the big ones on a learning, I'll do a learning and then I'll do a biggest setback. Learning one was we were around 100 million in system-wide sales, and we almost lost the company. We had a VP of finance who was very quiet, very amiable, very analytical, who kept telling us to slow down. Are you sure you're not growing too quickly? And, we were opening up in our fourth country, and we had 13 operating franchises that we owned and operated. And we were just grow, very profitable. But we had doubled in revenue 6 consecutive years, right? It was huge growth without giving up any equity, with no debt. And we'd used up a lot of our cash. We had about 5 million in cash, and we did a $2 million office renovation that we paid cash for. And we did an office move, and then we paid bonuses and taxes. And we were down to, I don't know, a few $100,000. So we went to the bank and said, we need a credit line. And they said, well, we can't loan to you. And we're like, why? Look at our growth. We're the number 2 company in Canada to work for. We're profitable. They're like, yeah, but you don't have any cash. We're like, yeah, we just spent it on all these things. And they're like, well, that was stupid. If you'd come to us 6 months ago, with 5 million, we would have loaned you 5 million. We're like, we didn't need 5 million. But they said, you don't have any idea how to run a business based on your financials, do you? And what we realized was that we didn't understand financials. We didn't understand how our understanding of financials has to change as a company scales. That the way you run a 10-person company or a 30-person company or 100 or 300 changes, and you need to adapt or die. And because our VP was so quiet and analytical and amiable, he'd be like, are you sure we're not growing too quick? We're like, no, we got this. And we would steamrolling over top of them. So what I learned was, if you're hiring people, listen to them. And if they're not people that you're going to listen to, hire people you're going to listen to. Because if you're just going to steamroll over people, you're going to go broke. Like, you're going to make the mistakes. So that was the big lesson. The big setback was just after that, like 6 months later, my best friend, Brian, the CEO, fired me. We're best friends to this day. But I was the wrong guy to take us from 100 million to the billion. I was the right guy to go from the 100 or from the million to 100 million. It took 12 months to find my replacement. They brought in the former president of Starbucks US to replace me. She came in and said, wow, what a cute little company. I'm like, fuck, this is so big.
Yeah.
She lasted 12 months, and they fired her she was very corporate, wrong culture fit, et cetera. And then they found about 8-10 months later, a close friend of mine who I'd started a fraternity with 30 years ago, who's been the COO now for about 9 years. He was the right guy to go from, at that point, 76 million. They dropped from 106 million down to 76. He's now taken them to 450 million. He would have been a terrible COO from the zone.
0 to 100. Yeah, for your zone.
Wrong guy. He's much more buttoned down, polished, Brooks Brothers, analytical, not corporate, but definitely more policies, procedures, polished, thoughtful, matrix decision making, whereas I'm like, Brian and I were like nitroglycerin. We were just 2 entrepreneurs who divided and conquered and ran 1,000 miles an hour.
And didn't listen to your accountant that was quiet or didn't speak up enough, your finance guy.
And it's funny, like, Brian let me go on that Thursday morning, and Monday the following week, I was doing a speaking event on his behalf to 600 people because he was trying to cover for me. Like, I spoke to a couple of huge conferences that month on his behalf because he didn't have time to speak at them. So it was a strange transition, and it was brutally hard. But yeah.
So you talk about, you can't run whether it's 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, the same way that you ran them when they were smaller. What are some of the telltale signs, Cameron, of either needing to replace or level up your people, your management team? You seem to be very, very self-aware in just moments ago saying, look, I was the guy to take it from 0 to 100 million. I was not the guy to take it. And so what are some of those signs?
What's interesting is I was the 6th member of the leadership team to get replaced over the 6 years. I was the last one of the initial team to get replaced by the next layer. So I knew intuitively it had to happen. We replaced our head of IT, we replaced our head of finance, replaced our head of the call center, replaced our head of sales, replaced head of franchising. We'd already done those other replacements. Typically what happens is a mid to senior level person can only stay in that mid to senior level role for 2 consecutive doubles in revenue or 1 triple. I talked to Clayton Mask, the founder of Infusionsoft, about it.
Yeah.
He's from Arizona as well. Clayton,
Chandler based. Yeah.
Yeah. Clayton and I both agreed it's 2 doubles. Ben Horowitz, who wrote The Hard Thing About Hard Things, says it's one triple. So when we went from 2 million to 4, from 4 to 8, it's hard for some of the managers to run it at 16, which is when we lost our first one or two. Very hard for them to run it at 30. Almost impossible at 60, which is when we lost our next two. And then me at the 100, moving into the 120 range. So the only way to really keep people in those fast growth years is to grow their skills, to hire ahead of that curve. And then to recognize that almost like if you have children, as much as I love my two boys that are 18 and 20, it's time for them to go. My job is to grow them so they can leave, which is heartbreaking watching it happening, but it's also really exciting watching them leave. And a company has to grow their people so they can go somewhere else or that they can stay. But you don't want to keep people when they've hit their ceiling.
I know you regularly consult winners, and one of the things in one of the pieces that I read or listened to says that you're constantly or relatively regularly giving suggestions or feedback on that entrepreneurs, CEOs, whatever, are too nice. What do you mean by that? That they're too nice, or in relation to their employees?
That might be a misquote. I don't mean nice, but I mean that sometimes leaders need to say no more often than we say yes. That it's not about the kumbaya group hug and letting everybody decide. Sometimes you need to make a decision and roll it out. Leaders need to listen, but sometimes leaders need to decide. Sometimes the employees don't all get to make the decision or have a vote. But that doesn't necessarily mean nice or not nice. It just means more strategic, more focused, more maybe analytical, more data-based. But I do believe that leaders need to be very nice to their employees. We need to really respect them, really care about them, really praise them. I don't think leaders spend anywhere near enough time praising and saying thank you and congratulating and high-fiving and cheering them on. If I ever told my girlfriend, oh, I told you I loved you last year, we wouldn't be together this year, right? Like, you need to keep reminding and reinforcing and saying thank you for specific things so that they know that you love them. But so many entrepreneurs like, oh, my employees know. No, they don't actually, because you've given them 17 other projects since the last time you said thank you. And you've shown them 6 other missing systems or 6 things that are broken, or you're stressed because you're not growing fast enough. No, they don't actually remember that you love them. They're worried. They're afraid. They're humans, right? And I think entrepreneurs and leaders need to, and I talk about this in my Investing in Leaders course as well, that we really need to, in our coaching and situational leadership, really, really work to find people doing stuff that is good and thank them and praise them twice as often as we give them projects to work on.
Well, and thank you for clearing that up for me. And not to mention all of the critical feedback that you've given that employee since the 17 projects, you know what I mean? And faster, more, I need this to look that way. I need it to, Cameron, as we round this out, just in the next minute or 2 or 3, what are some of your rituals for success? I mean, I don't know why morning rituals are such like a hot topic right now. I don't know if that's a thing for you, but what are some of the things that you do on a normal day or business day to prepare yourself to be able to win each and every day?
Yeah, well, one of the books that I wrote or co-authored was The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. And Hal Elrod and I co-authored that together. And the Miracle Morning concept has really taken off. I think we've got like 480 5-star reviews on Amazon for that one book alone. So the idea with the morning rituals are that it's about starting your day with the success habits to set you up for the rest of the day. So it's we start with what we call the morning savers. And the first S is a minute of silence. So it's waking up and just easing into the day, feeling the energy of the day, not just grabbing your phone right away. And then it's having an affirmation, just like a 1-sentence phrase or a mantra that you repeat to yourself that's building your confidence a little bit. And then it's the visualization. So a visualization might be reading your vivid vision or listening to part of your vivid vision or reading a paragraph of it or listening to it during a morning workout. And then the E is your exercise. So often if you're doing like a 7-minute workout or some kind of a workout, just listening to your vivid vision while you're doing that is powerful, and it can help to kind of, anchor you with that exercise. The R is for reading, and just taking some time to either read a book or listen to a book, whether it's personal growth or self-help, something along that reading side is really powerful. And then the S is scribing, which is just journaling and making notes and thinking about your thinking. And those are really the success habits. And then I do other things like the cold shower and, probiotics and lemon juice and sometimes smudging and, meditation. There's other habits that you can build into your day as well.
Appreciate you sharing that. Cameron, any other words of wisdom for the listeners that are out there today?
Yeah, I'll give the big one. The big one that I always think about is that none of this actually matters, right? We're all going to die. And this is just what we do to make money, regardless of what our job is or what our business is or how fast our growth is, that we're all just humans walking each other home, and we're all just trying our best. And this is just what we do to make money. But if we can enjoy the journey and enjoy the path and have some fun along the way and take some free time and have some vacations and connect with our friends and family, it makes it all worthwhile.
Incredible. Cameron, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing some of it and a lot of your wisdom with those that are listening and with me. Thank you, everybody, for joining Cameron and I today. And I hope that everyone creates just a fantastic Tuesday. Create a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.